3 weeks after I closed on the villa, my mother called to tell me my sister's wedding would be held there in October. I hadn't told anyone I bought it. I remember standing in my kitchen with a phone against my ear, still holding a bag of frozen peas, waiting for her to laugh. She didn't laugh. She just kept talking like this had already been decided in a room I wasn't invited to. Vanessa wants the ceremony by the water, she said, so we'll need the house from the 12th to the 19th. And Claire, you'll have to take the personal things out of the master bedroom. Grant's parents are staying there. How do you know about the house? Don't make it weird, she said. That was her answer. Don't make it weird. I'm Claire. I was 34 when I bought a 5-bedroom villa on Sandpiper Lane on the Gulf side of Florida for $1,050,000. I paid $700,000 down and financed the rest. Nobody in my family knew because for most of my life, nobody in my family asked me anything. And within 11 weeks, my mother would sign a document she wasn't allowed to sign, and I would learn that she had done the exact same thing before, to my grandmother. Here's how she found out about the house. My realtor posted a photo, one of those "sold, so happy for this client" posts, with the front of the villa and a little "sold" sign and my first name in the caption. My cousin's wife follows her. That's it. That's the whole mystery. A caption and a real estate agent who is proud of herself. By the time my mother called me, my sister had already screenshotted the photo, sent it to her wedding planner, and started calling it the family beach house. I want to be clear about something before I go further. I wasn't the abused child in the movie version. Nobody hit me. There were birthday cakes. There are photos of us at the zoo. I was just the one nobody looked at. Vanessa was 2 years younger and she was the event. Her volleyball games, her prom, her breakup with Kyle, her allergies, her energy. My parents drove 4 hours to watch her lose a tournament. When I graduated with honors, my mother left after the ceremony because Vanessa had a headache. I didn't rebel. That's the part I'm not proud of. I just got quieter and more useful. I fixed the computer. I did the taxes. I drove Grandma Rosalie to dialysis for 2 years while everyone else checked in. And I told myself that if I built something big enough, they'd finally look up. The money wasn't a lottery ticket. I worked in dental insurance claims for 6 years, and I noticed something boring and very profitable. Small clinics were losing thousands of dollars a month to denied claims they never appealed, because appealing takes time nobody has. So in 2015, I started doing it for them from my apartment. 2 clinics, then 9, then 41 across 3 states on monthly retainers, with 2 employees and then 6. In February of last year, a dental services group bought 60% of my company for $1.6 million. I stayed on as a consultant. After taxes and paying off my business line of credit, I had a little over $900,000 and a signature on a non-compete. I didn't tell my family about the sale. I told myself I'd tell them at Christmas when it felt real. If you've ever been the family's quiet one, the one who gets asked for favors and never gets asked how you're doing, you probably already know why I kept it to myself. Stay with me, because the deed part is where this stops being a family problem and becomes a legal one. 2 nights after the phone call, I went to their house for dinner. My mother had made a chicken. There were printed pages on the counter, face down, which is a detail I noticed and ignored, and I've thought about that 100 times since. Vanessa hugged me for the first time in maybe 4 years. Claire, oh my God, Sandpiper Lane. That's the nicest street. It's not on the water, I said. It's 2 lots back. Close enough. We ate. Nobody asked how I bought a house. Nobody asked about my company. My father asked whether the roof was original. Then my mother turned the pages over. "So I talked to Sheila," she said. Sheila Cross is her friend from church who does notary work at a title office, and she said the smart thing is to put my name on the deed with yours. I put my fork down. "Why would you be on my deed?" "Taxes," she said. "Homestead. And if something happens to you, God forbid, it stays in the family instead of going to the state." "That's not how any of that works." My father spoke without looking up from his plate. "Your mother's trying to protect you." "From what?" "You're single," my mother said. "You're 34. If you get sued, you lose everything. If my name's on it, they can't touch it." Here's what I want you to understand about that moment. It sounded like care. It was shaped like care. And every single thing in it was false. And she knew it was false, because Sheila Cross had almost certainly told her the truth, and she'd repeated the opposite to me anyway. "I'm not adding anyone to my deed," I said. My mother folded the pages back up, calm as anything. "Okay." That "okay" cost me 11 weeks and about $19,000 in legal fees. 6 days later, I got a text from Vanessa with a photo of a wedding invitation. Cream paper, gold letters. The venue line said, "The Bennett Family Estate, 4417 Sandpiper Lane." "They came out so good," she wrote. "We sent 140 out yesterday." I called her. She answered laughing like we were sharing something. "Vanessa, you cannot put my address on an invitation. Mom said you already said yes." I said no, 2 different times. There was a pause, and then her voice changed into a register I recognized from childhood, the one that made adults come running. "Are you serious right now? I have deposits down. The caterer is $9,000. Grant's parents are flying from Denver." "Then you move it." "You just don't want me to have anything," she said, and hung up. An hour later, my father called. He didn't yell. He never yells. He explains. "You've had a lot of luck," he said. "We're happy for you, but you didn't get there alone. Grandma Rosalie gave you money for that first computer. Your mother watched your dog for a month when you were traveling for clients. There's a family investment in you, Claire, whether you want to see it or not." "Grandma gave me $1,200 in 2015, I said. "I paid her back in 4 months. I have the check." "That's not the point." "What is the point?" "The point is family shares," he said. 1 week. In a house you're not even living in full time. And that was true. I wasn't living there yet. That's the part that made them bold. The villa sat empty 4 days out of 7 while I finished my lease in Tampa. In their heads, an empty house isn't really owned. I said no again. Then I did something I hadn't done in 34 years of being the reasonable one. I stopped arguing and started documenting. I want to be honest about what I felt driving home that night. It wasn't rage. It was this flat, tired clarity. Like I'd been holding a door shut with my shoulder for years, and finally noticed nobody on the other side was ever going to stop pushing. So that week, I made 5 calls. The first was to a real estate attorney named Marisol Reyes. I told her about the deed conversation. She asked me one question that changed the whole thing. "Have you ever signed a power of attorney for either parent?" I almost said no. Then I remembered. I was 19. My parents were managing my college savings account, and there was a form at the bank so my mother could handle the account and my financial aid paperwork while I was at school. General Durable Power of Attorney. I signed it in a bank lobby in about 40 seconds and never thought about it again. Marisol went very quiet on the phone. Then she said, "We're revoking that today, and we're recording the revocation with the county. We did it that Thursday, notarized, filed, mailed certified to both my parents and, Marisol insisted on this, copied to the title company and every bank the original had ever been shown to. The second call was to my property manager. New gate code, new locks, and a note in the file that no access was authorized for anyone named Bennett. The third call was to the title company that closed my purchase to confirm something I'd half forgotten. When I bought the villa, my business attorney had told me to hold it in an LLC for liability protection because I still had a consulting agreement and clients and exposure. So the villa isn't owned by Claire Bennett. It's owned by Harbor Row Holdings LLC. And Harbor Row Holdings is owned by a trust with exactly one trustee, and it isn't me either. It's a corporate trustee at a bank, because Marisol's colleague had set it up that way, and I'd signed the paperwork without thinking twice. My name is not on the deed of my own house. The fourth call was to a security company for cameras at the gate and both doors. The fifth call I made from my car outside a grocery store, and I almost didn't make it. I called Sheila Cross. She was friendly for about 90 seconds. Then I said, "My mother told me you advised her to put her name on my deed." "I told her she could ask you," Sheila said, careful. "I told her it needs your signature. Claire, I told her that twice." "Twice?" "She called again last week," Sheila said, and then she stopped talking. On September 4th, the title company called me, a woman named Priya from their recording department. She said, in the flat voice of somebody who does not want to be the one delivering this, that a quitclaim deed had been submitted for the Sandpiper Lane property. It transferred a 50% interest to Diane Bennett. It was signed Claire Bennett by Diane Bennett, attorney in fact, notarized. Attached was a photocopy of a power of attorney dated June 2011. "It's been rejected," Priya said. 2 reasons. The grantor doesn't match the vested owner. The vested owner is an LLC. And we have a recorded revocation of that power of attorney on file from July. I sat in my car in the parking lot of a Publix for about 10 minutes. She hadn't just asked. She'd waited, and then she'd gone around me, using a form I signed as a teenager, 3 weeks after being told in writing that the form was dead. And here's what I kept coming back to. That's not a person who panics and makes a mistake. That's a person who knows the steps, which made me wonder where she learned them. Grandma Rosalie died in 2016. She had a small yellow house in Bradenton with a lemon tree in the back. And for 2 years, I drove her to dialysis every Tuesday and Friday. She used to tell me the house was mine. I always said, "Don't talk like that." After the funeral, my mother told me the house had to be sold to cover Grandma's medical bills. I was 26, exhausted, and I believed her. Because why wouldn't I? Marisol pulled the county records in about 4 hours. There was a quitclaim deed on Grandma Rosalie's house, recorded in January of 2016, transferring the property from Rosalie Bennett to Diane Bennett, signed 4 months before Grandma died, at a point when she was on dialysis 3 times a week and had already had 1 stroke, notarized by Sheila Cross. The house sold that August for $310,000. And in the probate file, the file nobody had ever shown me, there was a copy of Grandma's will from 2009. It left the house on Bell Street to her granddaughter, Claire Bennett. Everything else split between her son and her daughter-in-law. Marisol read that line out loud to me on the phone and then said, "Claire, are you still there?" I said yes. I wasn't crying. I was doing math. 2 years of Tuesdays and Fridays. A lemon tree. $310,000. Vanessa's car in 2016 was a used Audi. I remember my mother saying a family friend got them a deal. I didn't call anyone. I gave Marisol the go-ahead to file, and I waited 8 days because the wedding setup was scheduled for October 11th, and I had decided something. I wasn't going to stop them from showing up. October 11th, 9:40 in the morning. My phone lit up with the gate camera. My mother's Highlander, my father's truck, a catering van, and a white SUV with a wedding planner's magnet on the door. 6 people at a gate that would not open, holding a printed key code that had been dead since July. I let it ring 4 times before I drove over. 40 minutes. By the time I pulled in, there were 50 rental chairs stacked on the grass strip outside the wall, an arch in 3 pieces, and a caterer on the phone with his boss. My mother came at me before I was fully out of the car. The code doesn't work. I know. Claire, there are 140 people coming here in 8 days. 140 people are coming to an address that isn't a venue, I said. That's not my emergency. Vanessa was crying in the passenger seat of the Highlander with the door open. Grant stood next to her, holding a garment bag, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else on earth. He's the one who said, "Mrs. Bennett, you told us it was handled." "It is handled," my mother said. Then she said the sentence I had been waiting 11 weeks to hear. "I'm on the deed." And there it was, out loud, in front of a caterer, a wedding planner, her husband, her daughter, and a doorbell camera. "Say that again?" I said. "I said I am on the deed. Half of this property is mine, and I don't need your permission to use my own house." I took the folder out of my bag. I'd like to tell you I was steady. My hands weren't. I handed her the first page, the revocation of power of attorney. Recorded July 17th, mailed certified to her address, signature confirmation attached. She'd signed for it herself. "That's the form you used," I said. "It was dead 3 weeks before you used it." Second page. The rejected quitclaim deed with her signature on it and the stamp across the front. It was rejected, not because of the revocation, because of this. Third page. The vesting deed. Harbor Row Holdings, LLC. "I don't own this house, Mom. A company owns it. A trust owns the company. A bank is the trustee. You didn't sign away half my house. You signed a fraudulent instrument transferring something I don't legally hold, using authority you didn't have, in front of a notary who has already told me she warned you twice." My father took the pages out of her hand and read them. He read them twice. Then he said, "Diane." Just her name. That's all he had. My mother's face did something I'd never seen it do. It stalled. Fourth page. And this one I handed to my father, not her, because he'd spent 34 years explaining things to me, and I wanted him to read this one himself. Grandma Rosalie's quitclaim, January 2016. Same notary. And under it, the will, with my name on it. "Bell Street was mine," I said. "You sold it in August and told me it went to medical bills. Medicaid covered her dialysis. There were no bills." The wedding planner had stopped pretending to look at her phone. My father said, very quietly, "You told me the will left it to us." My mother said, "It was family money." That's the whole thing, right there. That was her entire philosophy in 4 words. Everything I earned, everything Grandma left, everything with my name on it was family money, and family meant her. I gave them one thing before I left. I told them Marisol had already filed a petition to reopen my grandmother's estate and a civil claim, and that the forged deed had been referred to the county recorder's fraud unit and the state notary commission, and that if my mother contacted me directly again, that would also be documented. Then I drove home and threw up. Here's what happened after. Sheila Cross lost her notary commission in January and gave a written statement that my mother had asked her in 2016 to notarize a document while Rosalie was having a bad day, and that she'd done it because she'd known the family for 20 years. That statement did more damage than anything I had. The criminal side moved slowly and landed smaller than the internet would want. My mother pled to a reduced charge on the forged instrument. Probation, a fine, restitution, no jail. My attorney told me on day one not to build my peace on a jail sentence, and she was right. The civil side is where it actually hurt. In August, 11 months after the gate, my mother signed a settlement returning $186,000 to me out of the Bell Street proceeds and her retirement account. My father signed a separate agreement for $40,000. They refinanced their house to do it. They stopped speaking to me for a year. Vanessa got married on a Saturday in November at a lodge outside Ocala. 91 guests instead of 140, because you can't reprint invitations that fast, and some people just don't come. She emailed me 9 months later. It wasn't a beautiful apology. It was 2 paragraphs, and half of it was still about the caterer's deposit. But the last line said, "I didn't know about Grandma's house. I asked her about the Audi, and she wouldn't answer me. That's when I believed you." We text now, not often. It's not fixed, it's just not war. My mother sent one letter at Christmas. It said she never thought of it as stealing, that she thought she was managing things for a family that couldn't manage itself, and that she hoped one day I'd understand. There was no apology in it. I read it twice and put it in the folder with everything else, because that's where it belongs. I live in the villa full-time now. The office is where the master bedroom was going to hold Grant's parents. There's a lemon tree in a big clay pot on the back patio, and it's not the same tree, obviously, but it's the same kind, and it gives me maybe 11 lemons a year. I paid for one thing for my family after all of it. Grandma Rosalie's headstone, because the one she had was a flat marker with the wrong middle initial. Her name is spelled right now, and it says, "She taught somebody to drive on Tuesdays," which nobody understood at the engravers, and I didn't explain. The thing I got wrong for most of my life wasn't that I trusted them. It's that I thought if I built something big enough, they'd finally see me. They saw me the day there was $1 million attached. That's not being seen. That's being noticed. I'd give up the house before I'd give up knowing the difference. So tell me, if it was your family and they'd already done it once to your grandmother, would you have filed the report? Or would you have taken the money back quietly and just let the wedding happen?